Hi there. I'm on my way, I'm making it. I've got to make it show.
Oh, crap. Howdy, folks. I need a little help here because I'm dazed, amazed, and confused once again by women. I don't understand these creatures. They make no sense. Now, you men out there will understand me. You women out there will probably be listening to the things that I described. I'm going to describe 3 incidents, and you'll be nodding your head in agreement with the women that I talk about. First one is my mom. Last time I saw her was about 3 months before she died. And she was pretty sick. And I only got back to town for 10 days. I could only afford a 10-day visit. But she would not let me buy dinner. She insisted on cooking. And through every dinner, she would be bouncing up and down, as was her habit, trying to serve people food even though they hadn't finished the food that was already on their plate. And even though we were perfectly capable of going over to the stove and filling our own plate with seconds anytime we wanted. But rather than sit there and enjoy the meal, she was bouncing around like a maniac. Alright, so now you women out there are going, yeah, alright, I can understand that. I don't. I'm confused. The second little story is about my best friend, my other best friend, who was his wife, and my godson. We had an arrangement where every week I would go over to their house to have dinner, a home-cooked meal, and on alternate weeks, I would provide dinner. So once every 2 weeks, I would get a home-cooked dinner. And once every 2 weeks, they would get, either we would go out to a restaurant and I'd buy, or else I would pick up something from a restaurant and take it over for dinner. So they got a break from having to cook. But after dinner, the tradition was that my buddy and I would take my godson down the street to the ice cream store to get a cone of ice cream. When my godson was about 5 years old, we're going down the street and he tripped and took a header, boom, and kissed the sidewalk hard. I mean, he planted his face into that sidewalk full bore. And he's crying. And we pick him up, and he's got his hands over his face and everything, and all we see is blood, 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 blood. Okay? So it ended up that because he didn't want to pull his hands down off his face so we could see what the damage was, we sat him in my lap, and I pinned his arms while my buddy checked out his son. And it was a split lip. No teeth knocked out, none like that, no stitches needed. But, boy, a lot of blood. It stopped bleeding pretty quick, but at first, man, a lot of blood. So he's covered with blood. I've got blood all over me. My buddy has blood all over him. And we said, all right, well, I guess we're not going to be able to go get ice cream. At this, my godson really started wailing. He wanted his ice cream. And my buddy looked and said, hey, if he took a header like that, planted his face in the sidewalk, and he wants ice cream, he's going to get ice cream. So we went on down to the ice cream store anyway. And we got some we got some looks. I mean, we went in there, like I say, everybody's got blood on them, and the boy was covered with blood. I mean, he had blood all over his shirt, and on his pants, and on his face, and And we had our ice cream. And then we went back to my buddy's house, and boy, was Mom mad. She was really pissed off at my buddy and I. And you women right now are going, of course she was. Why? I don't understand. She was mad because we brought the boy back home so that she couldn't do anything for him later than had we gone home right away so that she couldn't do anything for him. Does that make sense? I mean, it's illogical. Why get mad over that? He didn't need stitches. He was fine. His lip was swollen like hell, but he was fine. He'd enjoyed his ice cream. And in fact, the ice cream had numbed his lip a bit so that we could at least get his face cleaned up. But boy, was Mom mad. I mean, his mom was just totally pissed off at my buddy and I. All right. Now, the third example happened today. A couple of days ago, because I got to spend most of my time in bed, I just got back from my neighbor's apartment. Because I got to spend most of my time in bed, I thought, you know what? Everybody's going to be cooking this great food for Thanksgiving. I don't want to have a TV dinner. And so I called them up to beg my way into a place at their table. Unfortunately, they were going over to their daughter's house. They invited me along, but it would have involved transferring into vehicles and being up for quite a while. And so I had to decline. The idea that I had was bounce across the hall to my neighbor's apartment, share dinner with them, share Thanksgiving with them, and then get back over here and get back into bed. Okay. So what happens instead is at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, I get a telephone call from my neighbor. And he's asking if they can borrow my wheelchair because his wife has fallen and hurt her hip and she can't stand up, she can't walk. And of course I say, sure, I've got my extra chair, and they know that, so I say, sure, no problem, and hurry up, get myself dressed and take the wheelchair over there. And I go in, and there's his wife sitting in this chair with her feet up on a footstool, straight out in front of her, and she's crying like hell. She's in a lot of pain. And she tells me that what happened was she fell off a stepladder. She was up reaching some stuff in the high cabinets and fell off and hurt her hip. And I asked them, are you sure you don't want to call an ambulance? And they said no. And then I noticed that the husband is over at the stove doing something. And I'm kind of, all right. And I go over and I ask him what he's doing. What he's doing is he's filling dishes with food for me. They'd basically prepared a whole bunch of food to take over to this Thanksgiving dinner. Everything except the turkey. And I told him, forget the food. You got to get your wife to the hospital. She interrupts. They're going to give me the food. And this woman who is crying and in great pain apologizes to me because they can't give me turkey. So they get this food. He gets the food in these dishes, 7 in all, and takes it over to my apartment. I'm still over there. Takes it over to my apartment and sets it on my stove. And then he goes back. Now she's made him do this. And I've got the wheelchair opened up now, and I've got the cushion in there, and you know, everything's set. Everything's set to get her into the wheelchair. She starts to stand up, and I see that she's got high heel shoes on because they were getting ready to go over to, like I say, their daughter's house for Thanksgiving. And I tell them, take the shoes off, you know, high heel shoes, tilt the hips forward. You don't want that if she's hurt her hip. So he goes and he finds a pair of flat shoes. She doesn't like them. And he finds a second pair of flat shoes, and she doesn't like those. Finally, the third pair of flat shoes are okay for her to go to the emergency room in. And he stands her up, and I move the wheelchair in and brace it so that she only has to turn 90 degrees and sit back down again. She doesn't have to walk anywhere. And then she wants her purse. And out of her purse she pulls her brush and starts brushing her hair, which looks fine to begin with. And again, she's apologizing to me for not giving me any turkey. And I'm saying, forget about the food, get to the hospital. So they go to the hospital, and about 4.5 hours later, I was really starting to get worried. 4.5 hours later, I get a call from my neighbor, and luckily she didn't break anything. She just got a real severe bone bruise from jamming her hip real hard. So, but we didn't know that at the time. You know, it could have very easily been a broken hip or a fractured hip, and at their age, that can be fatal, you know. So here's this woman that is dealing with a potentially broken hip or fractured pelvis, and she's primarily concerned about making sure that I've got food. When I get the call from my neighbor when he came back, first thing I want to know is, do I need more food? They gave me enough food to last me 3 days. It's been 4.5 or, hours or so. I haven't eaten, and I haven't finished off the food yet. So I go over there, and the wheelchair needed some little things done to it to make it comfortable for her. They're going to be keeping it for a little while until her hips gets better. So I go over there and I start doing these things. The tires were flat for one thing, so pump up the tires, and the armrests are torn up, which is very uncomfortable. So I cut a towel in half and rolled the towel up and made new pads for the armrests, basically, and taped them into place. And all the while it's food, 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 food. What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? And it's like, forget about the damn food. I've eaten and I'm full. So, what is it with women? I don't understand them. In the first case, we've got a woman who is literally dying, and it's, oh, food, feed, food, feed people, food, feed people. In the second case, we've got someone who gets extremely angry because we didn't go back so that she couldn't do anything with her for her son earlier, then she couldn't do anything for her son later because we stopped for ice cream. And in the third case, we've got a lady that potentially has a broken hip. Fortunately, like I say, it wasn't broken, but potentially has a broken hip. And again, it's food, 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 feed, feed, food, food, feed, feed. So please, ladies, help me understand. I'm a logical person. I look at a situation and the variables in the situation, and I set my priorities based on both the importance of a given variable and the time critical factor of a given variable. A medical emergency outweighs food. Okay? At least logically. What is it that makes women tick? That makes women think like y'all do? And guys, you guys have stories like this yourselves. I know I'm not alone here. Help me out. Help explain to women that they really aren't thinking right. Now they think we're male chauvinist pigs and stuff when we start telling them what to do, but what they don't realize is if it wasn't for us telling them what to do, they'd be busy making food all the time and trying to feed everybody and dying from injuries. We're saving their lives. I'm just confused. Totally freaking confused. Alright, so, help me out, ladies. What is it that makes you do these things that are so illogical, that make no sense? And, like I say, guys, help me out. I don't want to be the only chauvinist pig out here. You know? So, there's how my Thanksgiving went. Just another example of dazed and confused. God throwing up, you are not going to ever understand women, in my face. The food is delicious, but it doesn't take priority over a busted hip, over a medical emergency. Please help me understand.